How's it going, everybody? And go and grab a snack because we're about to be previewing the Week 8 2025 NFL games this weekend, this Sunday. Well, we're not going to beat around the bush too much. We're just going to jump right into it. But I will say, this is not going to be as much of a, we're going to go into all the little nitty-gritties. It's going to be more about some storylines to watch. I will give whom I think is going to win the game at the end of each little segment. But it's mostly going to be talking about some fun storylines to watch, some little behind-the-scenes or what type of things are on the line in this game versus just who's going to objectively win the game. But all that being said, we're going to jump in to the first game we've got on our slate, and that would be the Dolphins at the Falcons. Well, both these teams are looking for a win. Atlanta with playoff aspirations, while Miami is kind of, I would almost say in a rebuilding stage. For the Dolphins, I really think they're going to know Mike McDaniels. He's got to be on his way out. I would not be shocked if he gets fired during this season. I think he should get fired during this season. He may be a great offensive mind, but a motivator and a coach. If you watch any of his press conferences and you said this guy is an NFL head coach, you probably think it was like an SNL sketch. This dude could not lead anything. Maybe it's Miami taking its toll and Tua turned the ball over. It was really starting to get to him, and, I can't necessarily blame him if that's the case, but even if that's being said, I think they just need a coaching change down there in Miami. And another thing is they're probably going to be trying to trade/dump some players. I know there's been rumors that Jalen Phillips, one of their defensive linemen, going to potentially Detroit. I think that would make sense for both teams, but we're not here to talk about trade talks. We're also going to talk about the Falcons. Michael Penix, the first-round pick last year, I believe he was number 8 or 9 in the draft. He's questionable, and it's seeming like they're leaning towards the guy that they paid $180 million to the year prior, Kirk Cousins. Just so you guys know, he used a $40 million cap hit in the 2025 season. And, Penix wasn't hurt. He's pretty much their bench quarterback. You want to talk about highest paid backup in the league, look no further than Atlanta. But for Atlanta, the other thing is Raheem Morris. I don't know. This team has been very confusing. You lose to teams like the Panthers 30-0, then you beat good teams like, you don't beat the Niners, you lose to the Niners, the banged up Niners. It's just, this team is confusing. That's really the long and short. If I can go into all the nitty-gritties, but this team is super confusing, so they got to really try to get an identity, and this, I would assume, is a make-right game. The Dolphins are low. You got to kick them when you're low. You've got the talent to win games, so I do predict the Falcons will win at home. Don't have a final for you guys. We're not going to do finals. We're just going to do quick little blurbs like that. But moving on, we've got the Jets playing in Cincinnati against the Bengals. Well, they might not beat the Bengals that much longer. Flacco still got it, going against one of his former teams. And no Sauce Gardner, no Garrett Wilson for the New York Jets. They're looking most likely to go 0-8. I don't know if Flacco and the Bengals could lose this game if they tried. If they do, it's going to be a long, long Sunday for me, because if we gave the Jets the first win in Cincinnati, I think I'd just be crying on my couch. But for the Jets, like I said, they've got no Garrett Wilson, no Sauce Gardner. Tyrod Taylor is questionable, I believe. Justin Fields is also kind of in that question mark area. So who knows who's starting? I don't know. Are the Jets going to win a game this year? I was looking at their schedule. They play the Dolphins again and they play the Saints, but I don't think that they'd win either of these teams. I think we might potentially see our third ever no-win season in the NFL. I don't know if that's a little jumping the gun too early because it is only week 8, but Aaron Glenn, don't think he's the guy. Great defensive mind, not a great coach. I would be shocked if he's in New York next season. Bengals win this one. But moving on to Cleveland at New England. Drake May wants his MVP campaign to keep going. Well, he's going to have to prove it against the number 1 defense in the league. That is the Cleveland Browns. They're pretty darn good. I mean, their offense is abysmal. Is Gabriel that guy is Shador Sanders going to finally get a shot? Or do you give none of them and you get a high pick next year and you go with a Mendoza, Ty Simpson if you can? those are kind of some things you're thinking about for Cleveland because you've got a good defense. I mean, you're top 3 or top 5 in almost every category. I think they are the kind of overall number 1 defense. So there is some positives in Cleveland, which is kind of crazy to think about. And like I said, for the Pats, can Drake May put up some good stats and look like an MVP against a great defense at home? I think he should. I do think the defense coached by Jim Schwartz for Cleveland is pretty good. But I think Drake May will elevate his squad. Mike Vrabel will get his guys ready. Are we going to see any Travion Henderson? My whole little spiel on that, for those who don't know, is I think they're using Ramondre Stevenson until he's pretty much done, until he's kaput, his legs don't work no more. And then they're going to put in their prize back, which is Travion Henderson. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Stevenson is the last year of his contract, or he's got 1 year, and they're kind of using him for what they got, almost like a rental, and so they can get their prime guy in, because realistically, this team's only going to be getting better in the next upcoming years as Drake May improves. Again, the home team should win so far. That's 3 home teams winning, but against the competition you see, I don't know if anyone would be too shocked by that. Now we're moving on to the Dirty Birds facing the New York Giants. They just played on Thursday night a couple weeks ago, and, well, the Giants pulled up a pretty darn big upset, but the Giants also just blew the biggest lead in the fourth quarter in the last, few years, if not few decades, against the Broncos. And I think that Brian Daboll's time in New York has to come to an end. I just think that it's time for a coaching change in New York on both teams, like I said, with the Jets. But for New York, you've got a really good young quarterback. I think Jackson Dart is legit. You got Cam Scatabo. He's a culture changer. And you've got a pretty good defense. You got a good defensive front. They can be banged up at times, but definitely have the talent there. And after a 19-point blunder, if you watch any of that game, some of the coaching decisions just kind of playing super, super conservative against what will likely be a playoff team in the Broncos. So just really frustrating if you're a Giants fan, and, well, pretty on brand if you're a Giants fan. You're used to that type of stuff. But for the Eagles, no A.J. Brown. He's one of the few injuries we know at this time. Won't really get too much into injuries, guys, because we won't really know. It's kind of hard to speculate on Saturday when all the official stuff gets released on Sunday. But we do know no A.J. Brown. So can Hurts, Devonta Smith, and Saquon, who also I think might be a little banged up, can they win again against New York? They are 0-1, but they're going back to Philly. I really do think, again, the home team will take care of business against New York. But, again, I would not be surprised if Scat Pack and Dart, the creatine Caucasians, lock in and go 2-0 against Philly. But still got to go with my gut. Eagles win this one. And moving on to one of our last of the 7 1 o'clock slates. Buffalo is at Carolina. No Bryce Young for Carolina. Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket Bengals quarterback for many, many, many years, will be taking the start against Buffalo. Well, I think, guys, we're going to see the first away team get a win so far in this slate. Buffalo, this is a get-right game for them. They've been struggling a little bit. Josh Allen, still a stud, don't get me wrong, but they just haven't looked eye-popping in the way that you would expect them to, especially after that Thursday night or Monday night game, I believe it was, against the Patriots, where Drake May came into Buffalo and gave them the business. That was a legacy game for Drake May, but we're not talking about Drake May because I be talking about him all the time because you guys know I love me that May train. But Buffalo, it's a get-right game. I mean, quite frankly, especially against Andy Dalton in the backfield, you better win this game by at least 10 points just to start making yourself feel good, or else we might have to start having an uncomfortable conversation about Sean McDermott at the head coach position. But we're not quite there yet, so I'm not going to speculate. But it's some food for thought there. And for Carolina, I mean, your quarterback's out. Morale has just got to be a little bit low because it was on the way up. You got your first round pick, Teatero McMillan. I think that's how you pronounce his first name. Let's call him Tet McMillan, and he's a super stud. I don't know if anyone's too surprised by that. If you watch any Arizona games, you kind of knew this guy was pretty legit, and he's playing pretty darn legit. So maybe you just trying to build some more confidence with him. Andy Dalton is a pretty overall smart quarterback. He's been in the league for as long as he has for a reason. but still, Buffalo comes out on top. Chicago will go to Baltimore, trying to keep their win streak alive. 5 wins in a row now, I believe it is. And they're trying to make it 6 against a banged-up Baltimore team. Their defense has pretty much been the worst in the league. Lamar Jackson is a question mark to come back. Some thinks he will, some thinks he won't. If he does not start, Tyler Huntley is expected to make the start. Well, you guys remember when Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl a couple years ago? That was a weird Pro Bowl class. Pro Bowl's become a joke over the year, but that's like a whole. Actually, that might be a good V idea right there. Probably watch out for that sometime in the offseason. But for Baltimore, it's just, can your defense start playing a little bit? Can they look a little bit better? I mean, them and the Dallas Cowboys are fighting for the most holes in their Swiss cheese defense. I mean, they're just stinking it up. But I do really think that Chicago ends up winning here, even though it's in Baltimore. I really like what Ben Johnson's doing with Caleb Williams. Everyone wants to make fun of Caleb Williams. But you know what? Who cares that he paints his nail when he's balling on your team like he is for the Bears? Rome Odunze, just getting those guys involved. But, you know, I just said I wasn't going to get too much into injuries, but these are some ones that I also know going into the game. The Bears cornerbacks are a little bit banged up. Tyreek Stevenson and Kyler Gordon are already ruled out, and they've been having pretty elite seasons, probably their best seasons as a Bear. You hate to see that, but if you got Tyler Huntley back there for Baltimore, I don't think you're winning anything. So I think Chicago's going to keep the train rolling at 6 wins in a row in Baltimore, but we could see how that one goes. And our last 1 o'clock game is the San Francisco Blue Tent 49ers against Houston Texans. Well, the Niners, for me, it's just, is CMC going to keep up his MVP legacy? I mean, right now, like, if you guys watch my video, I think it was on Tuesday, we talked about my top 5 MVPs so far in this league. And, well, at number 3, I did have Christian McCaffrey. And, well, if you watch any CMC this year, you know why. He is carrying this 5-2 Niners team with Mr. Money Mac Jones, who, well, many wouldn't call him Money Mac because he's a backup on his 3rd team for a reason. He's not the best quarterback of all time, but when you're throwing it down to CMC and he's running up for about 10 yards a pop, well, it's going to look pretty good on the stat sheet. But the Houston has a pretty formidable defense. The defense is the only thing that's been keeping this Houston team afloat. So can CMC do it against an elite defense? Well, depends how elite Kyle Shanahan's play calling is that game. And for Houston, like I said, their defense is already legit. You know you got a good defense. It's the only thing that's keeping you in games. Can CJ Stroud get his ass together? I mean, he looked great his rookie year. I was basically like, oh, well, I was wrong. Ohio State quarterbacks. I was, because I was such an Ohio State quarterback hater for a valid reason. They never were good. And then you got CJ Stroud his rookie year balling out. You're like, well, I bit my tongue a little bit. CJ Stroud's that guy. And ever since then, well, he's looked like an Ohio State quarterback. It is really frustrating because I really, really like CJ Stroud. As far as Ohio State quarterbacks go, I could look past that for him. But he just hasn't looked good. Nico Collins is going to be out of this game. His debatable favorite target. It's just, Houston. I don't know what to make of them. It's one of those, you got to just watch out for CJ Stroud. What can he do? You know what the defense is going to do. Can CJ Stroud in the offense pick up? I don't know. I like the Blue Tent Niners winning this one. But that's going to do it for the 1 o'clock slates. Home teams pretty much always favored in this game. Actually, it's pretty split down the middle at 4-3. But we're going to move on for some more storylines in the next games, the 4 o'clock games. And starting off those 4 o'clock games, we've got Tampa Bay in New Orleans. Wow, those ticket prices are only at it says tickets as low as $19. Ooh. Poor Saints. No one wants to go watch Spencer Rattler stink it up. Even though, actually been a pretty solid quarterback. I actually want to kind of clap it up for Spencer Rattler. He's been doing a lot with a little. And, he's been getting a lot of hate in college, in the NFL. And he's looked pretty good. But my thing is, what are the Saints? What are they doing? What is this? This is looking like the Saints that we all used to know before Drew Brees came in and saved that team and made them look legit. What are they doing? I mean, you draft Tyler Shuck in the second round, like at 45 or 40. You draft him high. You draft him in a place where you're like, okay, this guy's likely going to be getting some minutes. Well, dude has not touched the field. You got Spencer Rattler, and he's playing good. I mean, he's playing at a level where, you don't really feel like Shuck is necessarily the guy to put in. I mean, I know New Orleans hasn't won a lot of games, but it's also because New Orleans doesn't have a lot of talent. They'll be having a top 5 pick no matter what, and it's nothing against the coaching. And I actually think first-year coach Kellen Moore has been doing pretty good with what he has, but I just don't know what this team wants. Like, this front office confuses the crap out of me. I wonder when you're going to see some of these guys you spend high picks on play. I mean, Tyler Shuck was a stupid pick when you picked him, I think, a 25-year-old rookie quarterback. Not necessarily a great play, especially if you're not going to play him right away. It makes no sense. So the storyline for Saints is just who's running the show? Who's making these choices? Because they really need to be investigated. We talk about all this NBA investigation. Where's the investigation on the Saints? What the hell is going on in New Orleans? And for Tampa, can Baker bounce back? He was an MVP guy going into last week, and then I'm not going to lie, he stunk it up in Detroit. Calvin Shepard, defensive coordinator for the Lions, pretty much put up a masterclass. He had no-name cornerbacks picking him off, just batting him and playing everywhere. It looked like he was pulling a Sam Darnold and seeing ghosts out there. Tampa Bay was just off schedule that whole game. So can they bounce back? Also, they know they're going to not have Mike Evans for the rest of the season, and he's such a leader for that young wide receiver core. Who's going to step up? We know Baker's that leader on the team, but who at the wide receiver room is going to step up and really get their guys ready for these games? That's what I really want to know. And the defense looked good against the Lions. I think the defense is good. You were more worried about the offense, or you'd be more worried about the defense for Tampa Bay, not the offense, but it was the contrary. So I don't know if the wide receivers were a bit banged up in that last game against the Lions, but also, I'm not going to lie, Baker was missing some throws, but I do expect Baker to bounce back. But just keep an eye out for Baker. His MVP, he's still in the MVP conversation. Maybe not as high as he used to be, but if he continues the season great and they only lose 2 or 3 more games, I still think he's got a legitimate shot at the MVP. Moving on, Dallas Cowboys are facing the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos have a top 5 defense. And Dak's playing like an MVP. He's got his number 1 wide receivers back, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. What type of numbers is Dak going to be putting up? I think he's going to be putting up some crazy numbers. I like me some Dak. That's what I'm looking for. Can Dak really solidify a potential MVP campaign in this game against a good Denver Broncos defense on the road? That's the big thing to watch. The defense, I wouldn't even give that any credit because the Swiss cheese Dallas Cowboys defense is going to let Bo Nix look kind of good. But the thing about Bo Nix is some people are really high on him. Some people think he sucks. I used to think he kind of sucked, but then you start watching him and looking at some of his stats, and you realize he's not one or the other. He is just an average quarterback. He's pretty much that 18 to 15 range if you're ranking quarterbacks, in my opinion. He's not great, but he's not bad. He misses some throws. He hits some throws. He makes good plays. He makes dumb plays. I wasn't a big fan of the draft pick at the time. I don't really like drafting older quarterbacks if you can help it, unless you just know they're a stud like Joe Burrow. But all that being said, I just don't really know what to think of Bo Nix. I think for him to be a good quarterback, he has to ball against a bad defense. I think if Bo Nix does not have more than 3 total touchdowns, unless there's just a bunch of rushing at the 1-yard line, it's like, well, he could have, but that kind of thing, then I'm not going to be impressed. But for the Denver defense, can they stop Dallas? I mean, they've been, I think, the best offense in the league, if not borderline the best offense points-wise. And, you've prided yourself on your defense for a good reason. You've got good guys at all 3 levels of the field. Can you stop a high-powered offense in Denver? Because if so, there's really nothing else you're scared about. The defense is nothing. So that's what you got to watch out for if you're Denver. I do think Denver does end up catching the dub here at home, but would be not shocked in the slightest if Dallas comes out on top. And our last 4 o'clock game this week 8 is Tennessee Titans at Indianapolis Colts. I don't even have much to say about this one, guys. This is a cupcake in the truest form of a cupcake. For any of those who like to put a little bit of money on the game, the line for Indiana is 14.5. They're playing at home against, well, the second worst team in the league, debatably even the worst team in the league. They just fired Brian Callahan last week, and thank God they did. Brian Callahan just sucks. He sucks bad. I mean, I don't care. I don't even know their new head coach's name. I can think of his face, can't think of his name. Anyone's better. Maybe he's not the legitimate guy you got moving forward, but Cam Ward's just got to step up. There's really not a lot of storylines to watch for Tennessee. It's really just, well, you're kind of waiting. Oh, what pick are we going to get in next year's draft? And for the Colts, this is a stat game, man. Look for Jonathan Taylor to really push his MVP candidacy with another 3-touchdown game. That'd make it 4 3-touchdown games on the year if he does it. And, well, Tennessee's pretty banged up. I don't know if Jeffrey Simmons is playing, one of their only good defenders, and on the defensive line nonetheless. I think JT, Indiana Jones, and crew just take care of business. I would expect them to win by 20, 28 points. I mean, I think there's going to be a massacre, and it should be. But last but not least, because we're going to talk about the Monday night game a little bit later in a different video, Green Bay at Pittsburgh is your Sunday night game. And, of course, what's the story? I didn't even have to write anything down for this one because we all know what the storyline is. It's Aaron Rodgers. He's playing against his former team. The Pittsburgh just came off of a pretty tough loss on the road against Cincinnati. And that the amount of ayahuasca and all that good stuff Aaron Rodgers is going to be taking before this game, he's going to be nice and zooted and dialed in against the Packers. I really want to see what Aaron Rodgers could do. That's the whole storyline for the Steelers. I mean, we'll say, I'll throw it in there. Can their defense bounce back? They looked really good in the last couple weeks, and then big blunder against the Flacco Bengals. I think the defense will look pretty good. And Green Bay, you started off the season with a statement win against the Lions. Everyone, including myself, was like, well, this team's going to win the Super Bowl. Whoa, look at this guy. Look at this team. The Lions are still really good, and they're giving them the business. And Jordan Love's an MVP, and Micah Parsons is that last missing key. And, well, ever since then, they've kind of looked mediocre, kind of the same kind of Green Bay we've seen the last couple of years, where they start the season, they're kind of mediocre. So we're going to start to see if Jordan Love can turn it on like he did a couple years ago, get his team right the ship. I don't really know if he's going to, but that's really what you got to watch. And also, can Micah Parsons and Rashawn Slater just live in the backfield against Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old, I believe, at this point. Not as mobile as he used to be, and even though he never was too mobile, can you take care of business on the road? I do think they can. Give me the Packers on the road beating the Steelers. But I don't even know. It's a coin toss. I wouldn't hate. I think both teams have a good shot at win. We'll see what Perc Rodgers can do. But that's some of the storylines to be watching in this Week 8 NFL season. Let me know if there's anything you think I missed or anything else you want me to talk about. And, well, that's going to do it, guys. You have a good one. Peace and love.